Perfect. Thank you, Nate.
Oh,
there we go. It's recording. Thank you, Nate. And we really appreciate this opportunity to be here in the Michaels Community Classroom. I'm Chris Williams, part of the Let's Paint team here at Platt Enterprises. And I get the privilege and honor to introduce to you our educator of the day, Andy Jones. He's got a great project all planned and lined up for you today. I know each and every one of you are going to enjoy this lesson. And Andy, before I turn it over, I just want to tell you, I see so many familiar happy faces out there waiting in the classroom. So I know everyone's now waving at me. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. You're going to have a great class with Andy. If you do have any questions, turn up your chat, like Nate said, and ask them in the chat. I'm here to relay all comments and questions to Andy for him to answer to you, or if I can't do it myself. So chat away and ask us questions. And Andy, I think I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to you because I know that clock is ticking and you've got to paint this beautiful leaf painting in just about an hour.
Yes, well, thank you so much for that, Chris. I appreciate that. And thank you, Nate. And welcome, everyone. We are going to be painting a little fiery fall leaf. And I did this on a 6x6 canvas, and we're going to try to get this done in just about an hour. Chances are we won't do that. It'll be a little bit more, but you know, we always set that lofty goal when we get started. If you are painting on a gallery wrap canvas like I have here, in class, we are only concerned about the top surface. You can paint the edges later on. We're not going to take the time to do that in class. All right, so a couple of other little things before we actually get started with this. First of all, do not type slow down or he's painting too fast in the chat. That's just wasting keystrokes for you because I've got to get through this at a certain pace. So telling me to slow down doesn't change the pace at all. The other thing I want you to remember is my favorite expression when you're doing a painting class. You get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. This is just a painting class. We're here to teach you a couple of fun techniques, hopefully expand your knowledge of painting a little bit and to have some fun. It is not a test. It doesn't make you a good person or a bad person, how you do. It's just fun. So let's keep it fun and enjoy whatever we have on our canvas. All right, so I'm using the original formula of FolkArt acrylic paints, and I'm going to start by putting out some yellow ochre on my palette. And I'm also going to put out some Camel. And I'm sure that Chris is putting these colors in the comments for you. Again, sure am. Of course you are. Of course, it's yellow ochre and Camel. So that's what we're starting with. And I'm going to use a relatively large flat brush. And I'm going to pick up some yellow ochre. I am not going to put it in any water. And I'm going to paint the entire surface of my canvas with the yellow ochre. Notice how I'm applying the paint to the surface. My brush is almost parallel to the canvas. I'm not holding the brush up, but I'm almost laying the brush down. And when I paint, I will start and I will move across, softening out any brush marks that I create on the canvas. So I start and move away, and every time my brush hits the canvas, it is removing any brush marks that I make. So start close to you and move away, and you will smooth out any brush marks that you have on the canvas. And this will give you a beautiful coverage of paint with no strange little brush marks in there. Again, keep that brush parallel to the surface. Keep picking up paint as you need it. Start close to you and move away. That way you get a really nice opaque coverage of paint on your canvas, and it doesn't have a lot of choppy little brush marks in it. So I'm going to set my paintbrush aside, and I'm going to pick up my flexible blade metal palette knife. And this is an RGM Plus metal palette knife. This is a number 6. It's available at michaels.com or in stores. And I am going to pick up some FolkArt Camel on the back of my palette knife. I'm gonna touch the brush into the paint, and then I'm gonna pat, pat, pat that color on the palette so that I have a small amount of paint on my palette knife. and I'm going to come onto the canvas and I'm going to make some smudges of Camel, and I'll pick up a little bit more Camel, and I'll make a few more smudges, pick up paint as I need it. I'm not using a lot of Camel, and I'm not creating a heavy texture. This is a visual texture only on the canvas, and note that the palette knife is parallel to the surface as I smudge some of this Camel color on. Now, it's not representing anything in particular. We are just making sure that our canvas has an interesting background on which to paint our leaf.
And Andy, when you're comfortable with your smudges, if you could raise that to the camera to give us a close-up, that would be absolutely awesome.
My pleasure. Just want to take a look at what I've got here. And this looks a little bit choppy to me. So I'll hold this up so you all can see what this looks like. And I'm going to just wipe my palette knife off, and I'm going to smooth over this just a little bit here and there. No extra paint, just a little smoothing. All right, so you all can do that now. I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that, and that's probably about a minute more than you actually need to do that. But we just want an interesting modeled background for our painting. All right, I'm going to, just don't freak out everyone, I'm going to stand up and see if I can find the little button on the back of my camera so that I can get rid of something that's blocking my monitor, because I can't see what I'm doing, and that will help you all if I can see. So just hang on a second. Okay, well, that.
And Andy, can you, while you're doing that, can you suggest a substitute in the color for Camel?
You could use linen. You could use any kind of tan color. It's up to you.
It's kind of a light tan, isn't it?
Yes.
We've had a busy week here at Plaid, and Andy, we just got a comment from Lynn in New Jersey, and she says it's been a fantastic week because we've been doing lots of teaching all of this week.
Yes, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, Chris.
Yes.
If you could text Dylan or Stephen to come take care of a little technical issue on my end here, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. But once you get your background done the way that you like it, then you can take your heat gun or hair dryer and dry this background, which I'm going to do right now. Thank you. I think we got it taken care of. Thank you. My little technical issue has been resolved, so I can see what you all see, and I know what we're doing there. Okay, so my background is dry, but I'm going to go ahead and let you all continue working for another moment. This is the nice part of me at the beginning of class. I give you a little extra time, and then we take it all the way at the end of the class.
Andy, while you're setting up for your next step, I'll just share a real quick comment. And it was someone who said they've attended many of our classes already this week and that all the instructors do a good job and the Plaid products are wonderful too.
Well, thank you. We do our best to educate and entertain. And so somebody wants to see the finished
I was just going to tell you that when you were done talking. Uh-huh.
So there's the finished one.
The unfortunate thing on Zoom is that you cannot zoom in.
Okay, so we are moving on to the next, probably the most dreaded part of this class, is we're going to use a pencil, or you could use a piece of chalk if you want to, and we are going to sketch our fall leaf on our canvas. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to start kind of in the lower left portion of my canvas, and I'm going to draw a nice curved line on my canvas like so, and I'll hold this up for you to see that I've drawn a curved line on my canvas. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of my line to be like the stem that's not leaf. And I will just kind of draw a little bit of a leaf shape, and the leaf's going to come back in, and we're going to make a couple of little jaggy points and another part up here at the top. We're going to come around this way. We're adding a jaggy point over here and come in and come back out for another jaggy point and back around to make our leaf shape. So there is the leaf that I've drawn. It does not look like the other leaf that I painted on my canvas, and that's perfectly fine. We've basically got 5 points to our leaf. This is kind of a combination of a maple leaf and an oak leaf and whatever other kind of fall tree that you have that has pretty foliage on it. That's whatever leaf it is. So that's what it looks like. So I'm going to give you a moment just to sketch a leaf shape onto your canvas. And do not obsess about this. Just a little leaf on there. If the leaf you paint, if you don't like the shape of the one you do with me in class, you can always do another canvas and change the leaf shape. If you want to spend some time looking for a design, you could probably find one in a coloring book, or maybe even on a roll of paper towels or something like that. But let's not fret about our leaf shape very much. So I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to get your leaf drawn on your canvas.
And while that's happening, Andy, we do have a question that you might want to answer. It doesn't really have to do with your class today, but I know it did with one of our Lunch and Learn programs. Let's tell this viewer how you suggest drying a real leaf.
Oh, to dry a real leaf, you can put it between parchment paper and in a book, a large book, press it in the book, then put it in the microwave with something weighing it down. It could be like a couple of dinner plates on it, or a couple of heavy coffee mugs or something, just to help weight the book closed. And then in like 1 minute burst, microwave the leaf, take it out, fan the pages of the book so it doesn't catch on fire, put your leaf back in, put the weights back on, microwave it for a minute. And it takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and that will pretty much dry out a leaf. And then you've got a leaf that's nicely pressed and dried, ready for crafting. All right, I have just put out some FolkArt wrought iron onto my palette, and I'm going to make a little mixture here that is going to be wrought iron plus a little yellow ochre, which hopefully is going to give me kind of a dirty, dark green color. I added a little too much yellow ochre to this. It is mostly wrought iron. And I'm going to add a little bit more wrought iron to this. It does not take very much yellow ochre, but this should be a very, very dark green, blackish green color.
It's a beautiful color. It's a great color to shade with too.
Well, thank you for that, Chris. All right, so I've now picked up a number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to dip my number 12 flat brush into water, and then I'm going to blot it on my shop towel, and I'm going to sneak 1/2 of the brush into this dark black-green color, and then move to a clean spot on my palette. And I'm going to pat the brush on the palette to soften the color into the brush. My brush doesn't seem damp enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more moisture, blot the excess out, and then pick up a little bit more paint.
And a substitute, Andy, for wrought iron if someone doesn't have it?
You could just use black. The wrought iron is a really dark gray color, so it's not as harsh as black. But what we're making here is like a super, super dark green color. All right, here is the big important part of the lesson today. All right, we are going to paint the shadow on our leaf. So I'm going to point out, here's the point of a leaf. There is this gap here before the shadow starts. There is a point here. There is a gap before the shadow starts. There is a point here. There is a gap before the shadow starts. So we want to make sure that our shadow is offset from our leaf. That is key to this. So with the color next to the leaf, I'm going to drop down from the point of my leaf, and then I'm going to pat, pat, pat this shadow color on. So the color is next to the leaf, and then it fades into nothing. So we're tap, tap, tapping and dab, dab, dabbing this color on. All right, now I'm going to leave the top part of this unshadowed, and I will move over here to this next section of this leaf, and I'm going to skip a little bit of a gap there from the point of my leaf, and we're going to tap, 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 and pat, pat, pat this color on, picking up water, always blotting on my towel before I come back to the palette. I don't want too much water on my brush, but I do want to be able to move my paint. And we're tap, tap, tapping and pat, pat, patting this color on. And I'm going to leave the top of this section unshadowed. And then we'll come over here and we will drop back a little bit, and we'll begin our shadow underneath the leaf.
And Andy, when you have a moment, we would love to see a close-up, please.
I know you would, but nobody's painting right now because you're watching me. And
they are watching, but they would still like a close-up to see the area that you're doing.
They will get to see that, I promise you. I unfortunately can't paint above my eye line. Got to see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to just add a little bit of a shadow that's going to be underneath my stem. All right, so I'm going to show this up close for everyone to see. There we go. And unfortunately, that shadow doesn't look like anything terribly exciting, but it is what gives our little leaf a little bit of dimension so that it stands out from our canvas a little bit. Now, I just noticed something weird when I looked at it. It looks like I've got two tips here on my shadow, and I don't want that. So I'm going to fix that just by going back over it and getting rid of one of those. All right, so now you don't see two, you just see the one there. So problem solved. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. Again, the color was a mixture of wrought iron plus a tiny bit of yellow ochre to create a very, very dark black-green color.
Andy, while everyone's painting and catching up to you, a couple comments that came in. Wow, it really looks 3D, and wow, it looks great already.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's only going to get better from here on out. I've rinsed that black-green color out of my brush, And I'm just setting my brush to the side, and we are going to get ready for our next step. You got about 30 seconds to finish up that shadow. And then we are going to move on. So I'm putting out some Cardinal red on my palette. So I'm watching my clock to make sure that I am actually giving you all the allotted time. All right.
No cheating, right?
No cheating. All right. So here is some Cardinal red. And to the Cardinal red, I'm going to add a little tiny bit of my black-green color that we just mixed up. If you don't have any more black-green color that you just mixed up, don't worry about that. Just grab a little bit of wrought iron and mix that into your Cardinal red. We're just making our Cardinal red a little bit darker and a little bit duller. I'd like for you to be in the habit of wiping your palette knife every time you pick up paint so that you don't contaminate your puddles of paint. All right, and remember, we mix our paint by mashing it with our palette knife. We do not pussyfoot around and try to just stir that paint together. Get in there and mash that paint to mix it and then push it back into a puddle, because the puddle of paint will protect itself and keep it from drying out so quickly. All right, we have now mixed our Cardinal red with either our black-green mixture or a little extra wrought iron so that we have a nice dark red color, and we are going to base coat or undercoat our leaf with this red color. So I'm using a number 12 flat brush. You could use any flat brush that you feel comfortable with. And I'm going to make the little stem of my leaf as well. Just stand the brush on the chisel edge to do that. Do not have the outside edge of your leaf super jiggy jaggy. You can have some little movement to the leaf, but don't overdo it. This isn't like a grape leaf or a poppy leaf or something like that. We don't need all those crazy jig-jag areas. You will thank me.
It wasn't cut with pinking shears.
No, you will thank me later when you don't have all those jiggy jags. A few are fine, but not too many.
We have a question that came in asking me, will there be more plaid paint classes offered through Michael's during the month of November and December? And yet the answer is yes. The November ones have been sent to Michael's, and I believe they're in the uploading, what do I want to say? The process. Thank you, Andy. So yes, we will be teaching through November and December. No worries.
You are going to love the classes that we've got lined up for you.
Lots of seasonal ideas. Andy will be teaching. I'll be teaching. Jennings will be teaching. Emma will be teaching, and so will Kirsten Jones.
You are not going to be bored this holiday season.
We're going to give you lots of opportunities to paint for your holiday gifts for everyone.
And of course, all of the classes can be done in just about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you haven't already begun to undercoat your leaf with your Cardinal red plus the black-green color or some wrought iron, go ahead and mix your color and undercoat your leaf. And while you all are doing that, I'm going to give this, I'll show you up close. And if you are not a speed painter and you want to just hang out and watch while we're doing this today, that's fine. And then once the class recording is posted, you can, of course, paint along at your own pace, at your own convenience once the class is posted on YouTube or to the michaels.com website.
And Andy, that's perfect segue, because while you were doing that and just before you did that announcement, there were several folks that say they love to just watch now and paint later at their own convenience without feeling rushed.
That's perfect.
Yes.
And I can see through my paint a little bit. I should say a little bit more than I want to. It doesn't usually bother me to see through it, but it's a little more than I want to. So I'm just going to give a quick second coat where my paint looks a little thin to me. I'm going to add a second coat there. Work neatly and carefully. And unfortunately, in this case, I have to say quickly. Usually I like to think of painting as a great escape, and you lose yourself in what you're doing and you lose all track of time and you are doing nothing but enjoying the process of creating a painting. But today we are not taking that great escape. We are escaping in just about an hour because that clock just keeps ticking by. And so our slow-baked social time has to be speeded up just a little bit. But I have to say, it is fun to do these Michaels community classes. They're great little projects. And if you can do the class in just about an hour or so, then you can paint these things for great gifts for everyone.
And Andy? Oh, he's trying. He may not hear me now. I'll wait a minute. Andy?
Yes.
We do have a question or a request. Sue Hollick said that it looks like you're using a special type of dryer. Maybe you could talk about your heat tool versus a hair dryer. And she wanted to know if it's okay to use a regular hair dryer.
You can use a regular hair dryer. I've fallen in love with a heat gun, and Michaels has, I don't have one here, but they have a heat gun very similar to the one I'm using. That's an Art Minds heat gun, and they just get a little bit hotter and dry paint a little bit faster. But you could use a regular hair dryer if you wanted to. Now, when we were talking about painting gifts for everyone, I want you to remember that there is no excuse that this cannot be a hand-painted holiday for everyone on your list.
Oh my gosh, that means I'm going to get an Andy original as a holiday gift.
Well, unless you've made it on the naughty list, and then you might not get anything. Okay, I have dried my leaf, and I've taken a moment and redrawn my center vein line in the leaf. And let's see if I can, there you go. You can see that center vein that's in there. So draw your center vein in there, and you will be happy that you have that in just a minute. All right, I am rinsing out my 3/4 inch flat brush in my basin, just cleaning out that yellow ochre that was in there. And I'm putting out a little bit more wrought iron on my palette. All right, I'm going to give you about another 30 seconds to get your leaf base coated, dried, and then to add that center vein line in your leaf. And then we will be moving on because we have to keep up a rapid pace today. And mercifully, the techniques are not difficult, and I think you're going to really love once we start dolling up our leaf in just a moment.
We had a request from Carolyn wanting to know if alizarin crimson would work in place of cardinal red. And Andy, I shared with her that alizarin crimson is a transparent color where cardinal red is not, but maybe she might try other red colors, kind of Christmassy reds, perhaps engine red or naphtha crimson or even apple red would work.
Yes. All right. So here is the next mixture that we're going to make. I'm going to take some of my cardinal red or whatever red you're using, and I'm going to add a big chunk of wrought iron to this. It's going to be almost equal parts, if not a little bit more wrought iron than red. So I'm making a really dark burgundy color here. So again, basically a 50-50 mix of cardinal red and wrought iron. So I know you're going to wait for me to do my step that I'm going to use this color on, and then you'll make your own. So I'm going to dampen my 3/4 inch flat brush, blot it on my towel, and then I'm going to sneak the brush into the paint, loading about half the brush with this beautiful burgundy color, and the other half just has some water in the brush.
And Andy, for Marianne's sake, can you just sneak back a minute and tell us again what color you used for the center vein in the middle of your leaf?
I used a pencil. I just drew the center vein in with a pencil.
Okay.
All right, so I've got my brush side loaded with this beautiful burgundy color, and I am going to, on the right-hand side of my leaf, if you notice that my leaf vein, the curve in the vein dips down this direction. So on this side of my leaf, on this right-hand side of the center vein line, I'm going to start in the middle of my leaf. I'm going to put my brush down and I'm going to pat, 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 and pull this dark shading on the right-hand side of the center vein line. Tap, 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 pat, 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 putting that dark color on and letting it stop right there at the stem. I'm going to turn the leaf upside down, and I'm going to start again in the center of the leaf, putting that dark burgundy color next to the center vein, and I'm going to tap, 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 and pat, 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 and darken that center vein line so that it looks like this. Okay, so let's side load our big old brush with our burgundy mixture and apply that to the right-hand side of our center vein line. And I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. And while you all are doing that, I'm going to dry mine.
This design, Andy, would be lovely on a blank note card too for the fall season.
Oh, yes.
Or even on a note card and then use it as a place setting card for Thanksgiving table.
Yes, you could do that too. So to me, that's a lot of painting to tell somebody where to sit. I would just say, you sit there. So much faster that way. All righty. You have I'm going to be generous and give you another minute to get this step done.
Yes, the palette knife that Andy uses, you want to explain that again? It's a number 6 and it's available at Michael's.
It's a very, very flexible metal blade palette knife. And the size is a number 6, and I just use this all the time. And it is, like I said, it's available at Michael's. You can, the item number is on your supply list for tonight's class. So this is the size and shape and style of palette knife that I recommend. Don't try to use a plastic palette knife, and don't try to use a credit card. Don't use a plastic knife that comes with your to-go meal. Invest in a really good metal blade palette knife. You will thank me later. All right.
And it's not an expensive one either.
No, they're not expensive, but they're worthwhile. You need good tools to do good work. All right, so I'm going to pick up some of my burgundy color on a number 12 flat brush, and I will also pick up a little extra wrought iron, just filling the brush with this paint. So burgundy plus wrought iron. All right, we are going to create the radiating veins in our leaf. So we're going to use the chisel edge of our brush, stand the brush on so that the bristles touch the surface and the handle pointing straight up. And we are going to paint a little curved line. We'll do another one down here. We'll do one up here. We'll alternate these and do some on the other side of the leaf. All right, so those are the first radiating veins that I put on the leaf. And I did those with the chisel edge of the brush. That way we don't have to get out our liner brush and panic about that. Making this as easy as we can. All right, I'll give you a moment to do that. And then we will make a couple of other little vein lines, and then we'll get ready to start decorating our leaf. So there are those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little veins there. Lindsay's iPad. I would love to encourage all of you all the time, because you can paint. There is no one who cannot learn to paint. It takes a couple of things in order to learn to paint. First, you need the desire to paint. If you don't want to learn how to paint, nobody's going to help you ever get anything done. But if you want to learn how to paint, the desire to do it needs to be there, and then some good quality instruction. And with those two things, there's nothing you can't accomplish. All right, next we are going to put a couple of little radiating veins on our leaf, and this is where we do not overdo. I'm going to put a couple on here, and that's probably all this little leaf is going to get. A real leaf would have hundreds, if not thousands, of little radiating veins. But you can see where I've just turned a couple of these into some Y shapes, and that's all we need to do. And these again are done using the chisel edge of the number 12 flat brush, using the same burgundy plus wrought iron. So I'll give you a moment to do that, and then we're going to start decorating our leaf. Or I like to think of it as our leaf is getting dressed and we're about to put some jewelry on it.
As you get ready for that next step, Andy, we did get a request for you to move your surface closer towards the camera, away from you, so that we can get a better angle. Your painted piece, when you're painting, move it away from you. There we go.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to also not get it in the paint, which I inevitably will do, and then I'll be annoyed with myself. So the fine line to walk there. All right, so I'm going to wipe out my big 3/4 inch flat brush. And for some of you, I'll rinse it out. For some of you, this is going to be just too big and too much brush to handle. So you could use a number 12 brush if you wanted to. And I'm going to put out some lipstick red on my palette. And you're not going to need much, just a little bit. And we are going to side load this. We are going to put half the brush into the lipstick red, and we're sliding into it, sneaking into it. Then we're going to move to a clean spot on the palette and blend that color into the brush so that we are side loaded with a little lipstick red, and the other side of the brush has water in it. And watch what we're going to do. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. We are going to put a little blush of red on, and I'll try to hold this up a little higher. And I'm going to put a little bit of this red right along the outside edge of the leaf. Tap, 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 pat, 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 dab, dab, dab. Can you see that really red edge there? It's not overdone, but it's just a little bit there. And I'm going to take that same lipstick red, side loaded on my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit up here near the top of the leaf. Tap, 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 pat, 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 dab, dab, dab. There's a little bit of fiery red at the tip of the leaf. And for fun, I'm going to put a little bit more over here on this side of the leaf where this little curve is. Tap, 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 pat, 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 dab, dab, dab. There you go. You can see that right around that little corner there. Then I'm going to wipe my brush out. I'll give you a minute to do that. Sorry, I was about to move on without giving you ample time to do that step. So you've got a minute to add a little bit of the lipstick red to your leaf.
And yes, that was done with either the 3/4 inch flat brush, or if you choose to, your number 12 flat.
All right, I have put out FolkArt's Pure Orange on my palette, and I've wiped my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to sneak into the Pure Orange on one half of the brush, move to my palette and soften that color out. And I'm going to put this on in a couple of places. I'm going to put some on here on this side of the leaf in this little curved area there. So we're going to start right at the edge of the leaf. Tap, 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 pat, pat, pat. And I can't see what I'm doing because it's too high. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit lower so I can actually see what I'm doing. Tap, 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 pat, 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 dab, dab, dab that color on. Right, so you can see that there's some beautiful orange on the edge of that leaf. And we'll do another little patch of orange over here. We'll start there and we'll tap, 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 pat, 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 dab, dab, dab. Work that beautiful pure orange onto the leaf. And you can see where I've added that. And that looks really great next to that shadow color. It really does start to make that leaf look like it's lifting off of the canvas. All right, we've done the hard work. Woo, I'm worn out. So much hard work we've done. But I'm going to have you put a couple of, I'm going to give you another moment to work on that. And then we're going to put out some other colors on our palette, but I'll wait just a moment for that. I don't want you all to be bored, but I also don't want you to feel like I'm cracking the whip too hard. This clock just never stops ticking. There was some song about time keeps on slipping into the future. And I think that my time, I don't know where my time goes, but it certainly doesn't hang around in a Michael's community class. All right.
And while you were teaching, Annie, just so you know, we've shared with everyone links to use or hashtags to use when they share and post all of their paintings socially afterwards.
Okay, and I did see a comment that someone was asking if they could use pumpkin orange. Absolutely, you can use pumpkin orange. I just used pure orange there, but we're about to drag out another orange color. So I'm going to put out some vintage tea rose, which is kind of a nice dusty pink color. And I'm also going to put out some tangerine.
And if you can show us a close-up of your completed piece one more time, that would be awesome.
Okay. So everybody knows that tangerine is all that. We've seen toast to tangerine in every bar across the Argentine. All right, let's take our vintage tea rose color. I'm going to take part of that and move it aside. And to this puddle, I'm going to add a little bit of my leaf base coat color, which was Cardinal red plus wrought iron. So what I'm doing is just making my vintage tea rose a little bit darker. So again, it's the color I used to base coat the leaf mixed into my vintage tea rose, making this a deep reddish pink color. And I'm adding more than I thought I would need to. So keep adding it bit by bit. You can always add more. It's virtually impossible to remove it. So just add it a little bit at a time, remembering to always clean that palette knife off. Okay, so now I've got two very distinctive kind of pinky colors here. And I am going to tell you the most important thing that I'm going to tell you in the class tonight. Do not, under any circumstances, use much paint on your palette knife. Tiny amount of paint. That is crucial to what we are going to do. If you use much paint, you're going to end up putting big blobs of color on your leaf, and that's not what you want. What we're going to be doing, I like to think of these as like the earrings on our lady who's gotten ready tonight. And so we've gotten her all dressed up to this point, and we don't want to make her look gaudy by putting too much jewelry on. So very, very small amount of paint on our paintbrush. And I'm going to start by picking up a little bit of lipstick red on the tip of my palette knife. Let's see if I can show this off so that it focuses. You can see where I've got paint on the palette knife, just toward the tip. There's way too much on there. So what I'm going to do is just tap, tap, tap on my palette to remove a lot of that, but the paint is still only at the tip of the palette knife. Let's see if you can see that better now. There you go. So just at the tip of the palette knife, and then up here at the tip of the leaf, let's watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my palette knife down. I'm trying to hold this up so you all can see a little closer. Put the palette knife down. Too much paint on my palette knife, so I'm taking a little bit more off. Just gonna scuff this color on. And you could see exactly where I've added a little bit of extra red up there. You can see it kind of speckle off. I'm gonna do the same thing down here at the base of the leaf. Very small amounts of paint because I want this color to really sputter off. So I have a broken edge of red. So you could see how that red's kind of dotted on the leaf a little bit. I'm gonna add another area of red, and this is over here. And I cannot stress enough how little paint it takes. And you can see where I added that red, and it just kind of sputters and speckles off of the palette knife. Too much paint equals big old blobs on your leaf, and that's not what we want. All right, I'll give you a moment to do that, and even less time to realize you have too much paint on your palette knife. I'm sensing that from everyone. Much less paint than you think you need. I promise you, it is so much less paint than you think you need. But I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to get that on, and then we're going to move on to decorate with a couple of other colors.
So basically, we're putting the earrings on now, and we're going to go to the necklace next, Andy.
Well, it could be the necklace, or maybe it's a bracelet next. I don't know. But, you know, Coco Chanel always says, put everything on that you think you need, take a look in the mirror and take something off. So we're about to put our next color on, and I am going to use a little bit of my pure orange next. Again, at the tip of the palette knife, picking up a small amount of paint, tap, 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 tap on my palette knife.
Andy, so sorry, Andy. Can before you move on to that new color, can you just show us a close-up of the previous color where you are right now? Thank you. We've had a couple requests.
Okay, so where that orange is to the left of on the left side of my leaf, I'm going to add a little bit of pure orange. Ooh, I had too much paint on my palette knife, and I've got a lot of pure orange over there, much more than I really wanted. But as you all know, you get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit. So I'm going to add a little extra orange to make that look like it was intentional. So there is my overly oranged area of the leaf. But as I said, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. So I'm going to leave that alone because I know I'm going to put something else there in just a second. So get a little bit of orange on your leaf. And if you want to, you can put a little bit over on the right side of the leaf where we added some orange over there. Again, less paint on your palette knife than you think you need. And that turned out beautifully over there. You can see those little speckles of orange. Okay, gonna give you a moment to put the pure orange on your leaf. So now you all are moving those palette knives as quickly as you can.
This is when we hear that Jeopardy music in the background.
You hear what in the background?
I said, this is when we hear the Jeopardy theme song music in the background.
Yes, or I'm just hearing a clock ticking really, really loudly. All right, so it's time to move on. My alarm just went off and told me it's time for the next step. So I've put out some Tangerine on my palette. And if you don't have Tangerine, you could use pure orange plus white. We'll give you a lighter orange color. Very little paint on my palette knife. And I'm going to take this Tangerine and I'm going to go over the area where I put that pure orange on where I had too much. But I want you to see what the leaf looks like with that Tangerine on there. Zing! It just pops off of that leaf. So love that little bit of Tangerine on there. Okay, got a couple of more things to do, and I'm feeling hopeful that we really are going to be done in just about an hour this afternoon. All right, I'm going to pick up some of that burgundy color on my palette knife, the color that we shaded on the right side of our center leaf vein. So pick that up on my palette knife, tap, tap, tap that on my palette. So I have very little paint on my brush. And then I'm going to pick up my dark pink color that we mixed. And I'm going to tap, tap, tap that. So I've got a little bit of two colors on my palette knife. And I'm going to, let me show you where I'm going to put this on my leaf, trying to explain this very carefully to you. Here is a radiating vein that comes out from our center vein here. And I'm going to put this light color on one side of that radiating vein. So when I pick up my palette knife and I put it on the leaf and slide it out from there and just spread that on there. So you could see where a little bit of that went on. And I'm going to take a little bit more of that, very small amount of paint, and I'm going to let this sputter up into the leaf just a little bit. If you don't like something, you could let that dry and then pick up some of the base coat color on your palette knife, and you can come back over that and cover some of that up. No harm, no foul. I just covered up too much, trying to show you what to do. Shouldn't have done that. So I'm going to take my color again, and I'm going to put a little bit back on there. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone because I'm going to quit messing with that. And I'm going to take some of that darker pink color that we mixed, dab, dab, dab palette, and a little bit of vintage tea rose and dab, dab that on. So I've got a lighter pink color on my palette knife. Again, precious little paint on the palette knife, and on the light side of my center vein line, I'm going to sputter some of that color into the leaf, setting that palette knife flat down on the leaf. And just letting a little of that color form the highlight on the leaf. All right, so this is just about all there is to this leaf. So it's a nice kind of fiery burgundy orange bit here on the leaf, and you don't want to overdo it. Remember, it takes a very, very small amount of paint on your palette knife to let this sputter off. And I'll show you both leaves together. This one has not been varnished. This one has been varnished with a gloss finish on it. So the colors do come to life a little bit more once it's varnished, but you can see the same technique was used, same colors, but every time you do it, you're going to get a little bit different effect. So this is how I painted my fiery fall leaf. So I would encourage you that when you finished your painting, photograph it and post it in the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group and use the hashtag Let's Paint Challenge. The Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group is a lot of fun. I usually teach in that group every Tuesday and Thursday at noon Eastern time. And so you just come to the group and look for the live link there. But you post your fiery fall leaves to the group, and we love to see what you've painted, and we encourage you to paint something every day. So until next time, everybody keep painting.